Just leave before it gets embarrassing. Those were the first words out of my mother's mouth the moment I stepped into the cold, oak-paneled room that reeked of old money and older betrayal. The will reading. The so-called final gathering after my grandfather's passing. I stood there at the doorway, wearing the only clean dress I owned, thrifted and ironed 3 times over. My palms were sweaty, but my chin didn't tremble. I wasn't going to let them see me shake, not again. Across the table sat my brother, Dean. 3-piece suit. Rolex. A smug grin plastered on his face like it was glued on. My parents flanked him like royal guards, their smiles cold and calculated. I wasn't even given a seat. "You always were the disappointment," Dad muttered under his breath, not even trying to hide it. "This is family business. And you, Alina? You chose art school and waitressing over legacy. We don't reward failure." I swallowed the lump rising in my throat. I wasn't surprised. Not really. But it still stung like hell. That's when the lawyer cleared his throat and everyone's attention snapped toward him. And what he said next. It cracked the smugness off every single one of their faces like thunder breaking a glass sky. "Actually, before we begin, I've been instructed to give this to Alina. Alone." A thick, sealed envelope with my name on it, my name, rested in his hand. Everyone froze. And that was when I knew something was coming. Something big. The silence in the room was thick enough to chew. My mother blinked like she'd been slapped. My father leaned forward as if trying to physically stop the moment from happening with the weight of his stare. Dean looked irritated, like someone had just interrupted his coronation. But the lawyer stood firm. He didn't flinch, didn't look away. He simply extended the envelope toward me again, his fingers steady. I stepped forward. Each footstep echoed louder than it should have, like even the room was holding its breath. I reached out, took the envelope, and before I could ask what was inside, he spoke again. "Your grandfather insisted you read this in private, before anything else is discussed." Dean scoffed. "This is a joke. Grandfather barely spoke to her in the last 5 years. Dad chuckled, cold and cruel. Probably one of his senile last-minute whims. Just read the damn thing, and let's move on." But the lawyer's voice was razor-sharp. "It was written months ago. Signed. Witnessed. Sealed." This wasn't senile. My hands shook slightly as I turned the envelope over and opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter on thick paper. Familiar loops and curves. It was definitely Grandpa's handwriting, firm, methodical. I stared at the first line, and everything else in the room faded. "Alina, if you're reading this, then I'm already gone, and the people around you are pretending to celebrate my life while carving up what they think I've left behind. But the truth is they don't know everything. You were always the one who saw people for who they really are. And I saw you, even when the rest of them didn't. I'm sorry for staying silent for so long. But I didn't write this letter to apologize. I wrote it to give you what they never would." My throat tightened. I continued reading. "There's a key inside this envelope. Use it. The safe deposit box it belongs to contains the full story, my story, your story, and the truth about this family that they've spent decades hiding. You deserve to know. And when you do, you'll understand why I chose you. Grandpa." I blinked hard. Then I felt it, the small bump in the corner of the envelope. A silver key. "Is this a game?" Dean sneered. But I wasn't looking at him. My eyes were locked on my father's. He looked pale, like someone had just opened a closet and revealed a body inside. And that's when I knew. They weren't surprised because Grandpa gave me something. They were terrified because they knew exactly what he might have left behind. I slipped the key into my pocket without saying a word. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, sharp, burning, desperate. But I kept my face blank. It wasn't just a key. It was a weapon. And judging by the sudden tension radiating from my parents and brother, they already knew what it could unlock. "I'll be back," I said quietly, walking out of the room, ignoring my father's sudden protest. "Alina, sit down." "The will's being read now," he snapped, voice cracking at the edges. But the lawyer interjected again, almost too calmly. "Mr. Hartwell, your father was clear in his instructions. No further proceedings until Ms. Alina reads what he left for her. Dad clenched his jaw so hard I thought his teeth might crack. I didn't wait for another word. I walked straight out of that mansion and into the biting wind of a gray afternoon. The chills should have gotten to me, but I felt electric. Adrenaline buzzed in my veins. I wasn't just some forgotten, useless daughter anymore. I was the center of a secret, and they hated that. 10 blocks away, I was standing in front of the old Citizens First Bank downtown. It hadn't changed since I was a kid. Same brick facade, same dusty windows, same heavy brass doors. I didn't even need directions. Grandpa used to bring me here once a year to handle adult stuff. He never let anyone else come. I thought it was weird back then. Now it made sense. The manager looked at the key, then at me. "This box hasn't been accessed in over 15 years, he murmured. He led me downstairs to the private vaults. The hallway smelled like cold metal and secrets. I slid the key into box 513. The lock clicked, loud in the silence. I pulled the box out, heart pounding. Inside was a leather-bound journal, thick with yellowed pages. On top was a flash drive and a sealed envelope labeled simply, "For Alina's eyes only." My hands shook. I opened the envelope first. It wasn't a letter this time. It was a photocopy of something official. A birth certificate. I blinked, confused, until I saw the name listed under Mother. Isabel Green. My heart stopped. That wasn't my mother's name. What the hell? Then came the note, paper clipped to it. "What you call your parents, they lied. You weren't born into this family. You were stolen into it." That's when the world tilted. I stared at the paper, fingers trembling. I read it again and again, my eyes refusing to believe what they saw. Stolen? No. No way. But the document in my hands didn't lie. It listed my name, Alina Green, not Hartwell. My birth date matched. But the parents listed? Total strangers. Isabel Green and Thomas Green. Who were they? I yanked the flash drive from the box and shoved it in my coat pocket. My heart was pounding like a drum in my throat as I opened the journal. Page 1. Grandpa's handwriting. "Alina, if you're reading this, then the truth is out. You weren't born a Hartwell. You were taken from the Green family after your mother died. My son, your so-called father, was desperate to give his wife a child after years of infertility. He knew Isabel from college. She died giving birth to you. You were supposed to be protected, but instead, they took you. Without consent. Without truth." My knees buckled, and I slumped against the cold vault wall. I felt like I was going to throw up. All those years of feeling like I didn't belong, of being told I was a failure, that I was never one of them. It wasn't in my head. It was real. They knew. They always knew. And they raised me anyway, like a stray they never really wanted. Just a placeholder until Dean was born. A pawn. A cover-up. I flipped the pages furiously. Grandpa had detailed everything, court documents never filed, witness testimonies, a private investigator's report he commissioned behind my father's back. He even wrote about how my birth father, Thomas, died in a car crash 2 years after I was born, leaving no one to fight for me. No one but Grandpa, who discovered the truth too late. And now he was gone. But he'd left behind his truth and power. And something else. On the last page. Box 2 is the nail in their coffin. It's in your name. The bank across the street. You'll need ID. I couldn't breathe. I had no idea what was in box 2. But whatever it was, they were terrified of it. I left the vault with my face pale, my chest tight, and my steps faster than my thoughts. My mind was spinning. A stolen identity, a hidden legacy, and a second box that could blow this all open? My so-called family didn't just steal my life. They built an empire on a lie. I stood across the street, staring at the bland, modern facade of another bank. United Reserve Trust. I'd never even noticed it before, but now it felt like a final door my grandfather left open just for me. Inside, I handed over my ID and the key. The woman at the front desk raised an eyebrow. "Box 112?" she said, then disappeared behind a secured glass door. A few minutes later, I was being escorted by another man in a navy suit down a sterile, white corridor. This time, the box was smaller. He left me alone in the vault. I turned the key. A soft click. The lid creaked open. And there, resting inside on black velvet, was a manila folder with thick legal documents. On top of it all was a single sheet of paper, handwritten. This trust belongs solely to Alina Green, not Hartwell. I flipped through the stack. There were stock certificates, property deeds, company shares, a breakdown of a private trust fund valued at $7.8 million, all set aside for me. My stomach twisted as I realized what I was looking at. My grandfather hadn't just exposed the truth. He'd taken action. This trust had been sealed for years, accumulating interest, acquiring real estate, quietly building power, and now it all legally belonged to me. It was quiet vengeance, the kind that doesn't scream, it destroys. I leaned against the wall, my breath shaky. Tears threatened to fall, but not from sadness. From relief. From validation. From the knowledge that I wasn't crazy. That I mattered. That someone saw me and chose me. Then my phone vibrated. Unknown number. One message. What did you take from the bank? My blood ran cold. They knew. My fingers clenched around the phone. That message, it wasn't a question. It was a threat. They knew I went to the second bank. They were watching. I didn't respond. I deleted the message, powered off the phone, and shoved it deep into my bag. My heart thundered in my chest like warning drums. I wasn't safe. Not anymore. I tucked the folder under my coat and stepped back out into the cold afternoon. The sky had darkened slightly, like even the weather was holding its breath. I needed to think. I needed to be smart. I took the long way home, kept my head down, eyes alert. By the time I reached my tiny apartment above the bookstore, the sun had dipped below the skyline. I bolted the door, double-checked the locks, then laid everything out on my kitchen table, the journal, the trust documents, the birth certificate, and the flash drive. The flash drive. I slid it into my laptop with trembling hands. A single video file. I clicked. Grandpa's face appeared on screen, older than I remembered, but his eyes were steady. Serious. If you're watching this, Selena, it means I'm gone. And it means I failed to stop them. Your father, James Hartwell, was my biggest shame. I tried to fix him. I gave him the company, the name, everything. And he repaid me by stealing you. He sighed, deep and tired. Your real mother was a good woman. My son met her during college, got close, got her pregnant. When she passed, he didn't grieve. He saw an opportunity. Your grandparents on her side tried to find you, but they were silenced, paid off, threatened. I found out too late. His voice cracked. I stayed quiet at first because I thought I could fix it from inside. I thought if I showed you love, it would balance the hate. But your father always made sure you felt like a stranger. I'm sorry, Alina. I am so sorry. That trust one left you. It's just the beginning. You're stronger than all of them combined. Use what I've given you. Expose the truth. Take what's yours. The screen went black. I sat in stunned silence. It wasn't just validation. It was fuel. A spark. And then came the sound that sent ice crawling up my spine. Bang. A fist slamming into my front door. Alina. Open up. Dean's voice called through the wood. We need to talk. I didn't move. Then another bang. Harder this time. Now. I backed away slowly. He wasn't alone. I could hear another voice outside, Dad's. That's when I realized. They weren't asking. They were coming for war. My breath caught in my throat. Alina. Dean's voice thundered again. He was no longer pretending to be the charming heir. He sounded like a man cornered, desperate, dangerous. I stayed completely still. Then came the rattling of the door handle. Twisting. Yanking. They were testing whether I'd left it unlocked. Click. The deadbolt held. I slowly backed toward the hallway, every instinct screaming at me to run. But I didn't. I wouldn't. They wanted me afraid. They wanted me to crack. But I wasn't the scared, silent daughter anymore. I don't know what your plan is, Dad called out suddenly, his voice like ice through the wood. But if you release anything from that vault, you'll destroy this family. Your family. My family? The audacity nearly made me laugh. They stole me, lied to me, broke me down for years. And now they were using family as a leash? I stepped forward until I was just inches from the door, then spoke loud and clear. I wasn't your family the day you decided I was only useful as your cover story. Silence. Then Dean's voice, closer now. What did he leave you, huh? Some sob story about your dead mother? You think people are going to care? No one's going to believe the bastard daughter of a waitress over the Hartwell legacy. I smirked. My hands were still trembling, but the fear was gone now. I had truth. They had power, sure. But the ground under their empire was cracking, and they knew it. You should leave, Dean, I said. Before you embarrass yourself. A pause. Then bam, he kicked the door once. Twice. I flinched, but it held. Then nothing. Silence again. I waited, barely breathing, until I heard their footsteps retreating down the stairwell. They were gone for now, but I knew they'd be back. And next time, they wouldn't knock. That night, I didn't sleep. Instead, I stayed up reading every line of the documents. Every clause. Every loophole. Every page of Grandpa's journal. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I wasn't just going to expose them. I was going to burn their masks down to ash and walk through the smoke with my name finally clean. I didn't run. Not anymore. The moment Dean and my father left my door, I started moving fast. I scanned every page of the trust, the birth certificate, Grandpa's journal, and his signed video confession. Then I sent copies to a lawyer friend of mine from school, Layla, who worked in estate litigation. She called within an hour. Alina, you own 47% of their company now. And with the other shareholders Grandpa named, they don't even hold majority anymore. I froze. And there's more, she added. If this goes to court, they'll face criminal charges for falsifying a birth record. If you wanted to, you could bring it all down. I stared at my screen. I wasn't just back in the game. I was holding the detonator. I showed up at the Hartwell Corporation the next morning with Layla and 2 security guards. We entered the boardroom mid-meeting. My father turned white. Dean stood and laughed. You're not welcome here. I dropped the file on the table. Grandpa's trust. The shareholder transfer. The DNA results confirming I wasn't biologically theirs. And most importantly, proof I now held controlling interest. You're done, I said, locking eyes with my father. I'm not asking for a seat. I'm taking the one that's mine. Security escorted Dean out after he lunged at the papers. My father sat there in stunned silence, hands trembling. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I won. Layla released the story to the press. Stolen daughter takes back legacy. Hartwell family exposed. It hit like an earthquake. I watched the chaos unfold from my tiny apartment as everything they built on lies began crumbling. Corporate sponsors dropped them. Their legal team resigned. Investigations opened. Dean tried denying it until receipts surfaced. My mother gave a tearful, rehearsed apology on TV. I didn't even flinch. They tried to reconvene the original while reading a week later, pretending nothing had changed. I walked in last, holding the final piece Grandpa left in Box 2, a signed amendment to his will, naming me the sole heir. The lawyer read it aloud. My parents' faces collapsed. This can't be real, my mother gasped. It's real, the lawyer confirmed. Mr. Hartwell ensured it was airtight. Everything, the estate, the company shares, the properties shifted to my name in one sentence. And I didn't smile. I just stood. Quiet. Calm. Complete. As I left the mansion for the last time, my father followed me outside. You destroyed us, he spat. No, I said quietly. You did that the day you stole me. I just finished the story. He reached out, but I stepped back. You told me I'd never be good enough, I whispered. But I was never yours to break. I walked away. For good. I legally changed my name to Alina Green. I sold the mansion, restructured the company under a new name, and set up a foundation